Welcome to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. I'm Julie Starke, your host today, and we'll be talking to Anodea Judith. Anodea is a world-renowned teacher, a somatic therapist, an advanced yoga teacher, and the best-selling author of countless books on the chakra system. Her first book, Wheels of Life, is an introduction to the classic chakra system. Her latest book, Charge in the Energy Body, is about mastering the life force. We'll talk about all of that and more today on Reflections. So welcome, Anodea. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Julie. I'm delighted to be here.
So many of us are familiar with your first book, The Wheels of Life. Most of my contemporaries would say that that was their first introduction to the chakra system. So today, I think we should start with this idea of a basic overview of the chakras before we get into a little deeper discussion about how that may affect us individually and collectively. Can you share a little bit about their placement, the elements associated with each of them, and perhaps their definition or how they represent?
Sure. Well, the word chakra means wheel or disc, and you can think of it as a kind of programming you have. Remember when we used to have floppy disks? That we installed in our computer. Well, they're biological, spiritual, psychological programming that we have installed into the hardware of our nervous system. And they represent different levels of consciousness. And together they form a whole comprehensive, holistic system that moves from our physical reality here in bodies down on the earth all the way up to our highest spiritual aspirations. So briefly, there's 7 energy centers in the body. My definition of a chakra is a center of organization for the reception, the assimilation, the storage, and the expression of life force energy. So we take it in, we assimilate it like you assimilate your food into vitamins and minerals. We store it. If you eat too much, you store it as fat. Or you store, you take notes and you store what you're learning, and then we express it. And this happens on 7 different levels. And of course, there are systems that have more or fewer or greater chakras, but I like the 7 element system because it's so profound and it really covers the full spectrum of human experience. So just briefly, the first chakra is located at the base of the body. Where is it? You're sitting on it. Its name, Muladhara, means root support, and it's related to the element earth. So everything earth-related, our material bodies, everything that's solid, your bones, your muscles, your survival consciousness, and your connection to the earth and ability to be grounded. Above that, in the second chakra, we have the water element. Water goes down into earth. We plant the roots in the earth, and then the next thing we have to do is water them. This is called svadhisthana, and it means to stand in one's own place. And it's connected to our sensations, our emotions, our sexuality, our drives, our desires, and that really turbulent, watery place where we want to be able to find balance in duality. Once you find that balance and you've got earth and water working together, then you rise up into the fire. That's the third chakra, the solar plexus. It is often called the Power Chakra because it's our will, our strength, our autonomy, our self-definition, our fiery get up and go vitality, and really you can think of it as the furnace of the body that is just supplying the energy to the whole body. And then once we go through the fire, we come up to the heart. That is the middle chakra in a whole system of 7. Its name, Anahata, means sound that is made without anything striking, or unstruck or unhurt. And so to me, healing is an aspect of the heart chakra where we are unhurting the hurts that we've sustained in life. When we heal them, we unhurt ourselves, so to speak. And this is the element air, so it relates to the breath. And of course, the heart chakra is the center of love, compassion, empathy, forgiveness, acceptance, peace, because it's the balance point in the chakra system. Once we go through that, we come up to the throat, which is the element sound. Vishuddha means purification. And this is the smallest part of the body where the 7 major chakras are. So this little bottleneck, if you will, is a purifier that purifies the energy of the lower chakras for higher consciousness. It's connected with communication, with sound, with creativity, self-expression. And then we come up to the higher, more transcendent chakras. Chakra 6 is the Ajna chakra, means to command and to perceive. And this is where we see, this is our intuition, our dreams, our imagination, our ability to visualize, find a vision for our life, see the bigger picture. And then all of that is run by consciousness itself. The domain of the 7th chakra, but really all the chakras are run by consciousness. But this is consciousness looking at itself, pure awareness. Who am I in here? How do I know? What's a thought? What makes me think? All of those questions, those transcendent aspects we get in deep meditation, the connection to the beyond, that's the 7th chakra. But you put them all together and you have a whole comprehensive system that touches humans on the full spectrum of our experience.
You know, that is beautifully described and really easy to understand when you put it in that context. I know that Edgar Cayce believed that they were spiritual centers in our body and they were attached to our endocrine system. So again, the energy of the connection between the mind and the body. But I was also struck by something that I discovered in that in my own review of the chakra system, that you have sort of the lower chakras and the upper, and the heart is the center. And that oftentimes Cayce himself referred to the lower chakras as sort of a on earth, and then the upper chakras as it is in heaven. So, you know, there's I think a lot to relate to in terms of that part of the conversation. But you often refer to in your writings that I've discovered is that you don't see them as open or closed. So where the heart chakra may be the center and it's moving the energy and helping to connect the upper and lower bodies, you don't consider them opened or closed. And I've often heard that in my own reference of the chakra system. But you look at them as excessive or deficient. And you talk in your latest book, Charge in the Energy Body, about charging and discharging. Can you speak to that a little bit and how you see that working?
Yeah, well, I like the excessive and deficient because it's a little more nuanced. I don't think anybody has a totally closed chakra. But when we have to compensate for something we didn't get, let's say we didn't get enough love growing up. So we compensate. We want to be the center of attention all the time. And we want everybody to, worship us and be social all the time. Then we are a little excessive in the heart chakra. We might be more into other people than we feel ourselves. Or we talk too much. That would be an excessive 5th chakra. Or we have to be in control of everything. That would be an excessive 3rd chakra. That means we do too much of something. It's a way the energy gets fixated. On the other hand, we might have shut down and really actually constricted. People feel this often in their throat, where their voice comes out like this because it's very restricted. That would be a deficient 5th chakra, where you can't get your words out. You have a shy, tiny little voice, or your heart is shut down and you can't really feel love, or you feel very powerless and so you're passive and you give your power away to everyone else. Those would be aspects of a deficient chakra. And a deficient chakra has too little energy and it needs to charge up. We charge up by taking energy from outside to the inside. Like we take food from the outside to inside, we take breath from the outside to the inside, information, and that charges us up. And discharging is what an excessive chakra needs to do. It has too much, it needs to get rid of some energy. That's taking energy from the inside out. Like talking is a discharge, crying is a discharge, working hard is a discharge, exercising is a discharge. These are all ways to let go of energy. But each chakra can do that to come into balance with itself, and so the chakras come into balance with each other.
So it feels a little bit to me like the it's a constant balancing act of keeping these chakras in alignment and keeping the energy flowing. And I wonder, is it something that we're born with, that sort of a propensity in one chakra or another to discharge or charge, or to have a deficiency or an excess? Or is that something that we pick up from other people along the way, or collective life world events, or things that are happening in our own lives? How does that energy sort of move around like that for us?
Well, I would say, Julie, that it's all of the above, all the things that you just stated. It's sort of like spinning plates, you know?
Sure.
You get one going, and then you got to go get this one going, and then that's losing, so you got to go back to that.
I think we all know that very well, spinning plates,
I mean, I do believe, when I look at people, and believe me, I've worked with thousands of people in my life, that there is something that we come in with. Some people are born with wealth, for example. They're born into wealth, and some people are born into poverty. And is that from a past life? Well, that's just conjecture. It might be, it might not be. But we don't all come in with equal advantage, that's for sure. And, you know, people have talents. They're good singers, you know, or someone else can't put two words together, or people are highly visual. So we have talents. And then our childhood experiences certainly impact our chakras, any kind of trauma or difficulty. And that is actually how we develop our excess and deficiency. When an organism is insulted or challenged or attacked in some way, it reacts by either increasing its energy to deal with the attack, like getting inflamed because you have an infection, or, you know, fighting with your brothers, you know, to fend off a bully. Or it runs away from the attack. It decreases its energy, saying, oh, I don't want to feel that. You know, if I don't want to feel my feelings, then I constrict my second chakra. And then I don't really feel that. You know, I don't want to feel my heart because my heart's been broken, for example. Then that would be, you know, constricting that. So it is our way we defend against childhood trauma, and the way we survive that, whatever we did to ourselves to survive that, that actually shapes the excess and deficiency. And then we are living in a larger world. You know, we're living in a world where there's racism and sexism, and that is, you know, bigger than someone's individual talents. You know, someone might be very, very talented, and because they're born Black, they don't get the advantage that, you know, someone else might have. So we are also in this collective field together. So it's all of those things that you stated.
You know, that it brings up a really good topic that I'd like to touch on today, and that's this present moment and where we are today. You know, we seem to be living in extremely turbulent times. I'm sure that my father said that, and my grandfather, or my mother and my grandmother said that before, but it seems to be really heightened right now. And I feel like, of course, with what we've all gone through in a worldwide pandemic, that, you know, there's been a shift in the suffering, and there's been a devastating losses, and it feels like there is a real evolution of humanity in our midst. And when I hear you talk about the chakra system, it also reminds me of, you know, countless other things that we've learned in our lives, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Or even the Enneagram. There are ways to apply all of this, or Jungian psychology, or I believe you referenced Freud a lot in some of your writings, and the way that this all kind of works together. But it seems to me that the chakra system is a really clear way to understand, both individually and collectively, what's happening. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of humanity, where we are today, and how we can use this system to move forward individually and collectively in a more profound way, shall I say.
Well, this question is very near and dear to my heart. And one of the things I love about the chakra system is it's an interface between our individual interior development and the exterior collective development. And it's a map that maps onto both. So I wrote a whole book on this, Waking the Global Heart. And I chart human history through the chakras. And in my view, currently, we are coming to the end of the third chakra era. which has been going on for about 5,000 years since we first came into civilization, where we were organized, a motley bunch of people that spoke different languages and had different gods and customs, by a strong person on top who told everybody what to do. Remember, there were no fax machines then. People didn't know how to read and write. There were no newspapers. There was no, technology like we know it today to keep society together, like, ruling over a bunch of very young children. You've got to lay down the law and say, this is how it's going to be. And that's a power over dynamic. Think of the pyramid, somebody on top and everybody else underneath. And we've been organized, society has been organized along those power lines for about 5,000 years. But we've been growing up all this time. We aren't the unruly children we once were that didn't know anything about the world and couldn't read or write. Now, most people are literate, and we have the internet, and we have information, and we have science, and we have all kinds of development, technology at our fingertips. We are, at our adolescence, undergoing a rite of passage to our future adulthood, which I see as a shift from what I call the love of power paradigm, which is what we've been in, to the power of love paradigm. And that's love is an organizing principle, not just a sentiment, but it's peer-to-peer organizing. It's moving from a chain of command to a web of connection. It is, moving from stockholders to stakeholders, from greed to green. I have a lot of these little things that it's, moving from one kind of hierarchy to holarchy. There's different ways that society is organizing, and it's not yet in its maturity for that, but it is getting organized that way more and more all the time. People can publish their own books, they can publish their own records, make their own movies. It's not just the tools of power are no longer in hands of the elite only. They're now in the hands of the common people. And it is resting on the common people to propagate a new vision, a new story of where we're going on this planet, how we can live together, how we can harmonize with nature and have a thriving future. And despite the fact that there's a lot of terrible news today, I'm actually hopeful because all of these challenges are evolutionary drivers. Like climate change is the perfect problem to make all nations cooperate. And it's the only way that's going to be solved. And we'll have, instead of an enemy that's somebody to drop bombs on over on the other side of the world, the enemy will be climate change, something that we all have to unite to solve. But it's not some nation to kill, it's a problem to solve.
And that's a really unique way to look at this whole idea of climate change as an example, because we have been living in a world that puts, competition above cooperation, as you say, profits above people and the planet. And I guess we are starting to see world leaders come together and talk about climate change in a way that's cooperative instead of competing with one another. What can we do as individuals to help uplift that, to help move us into this more profound evolutionary stance that's, I would assume, moving, because you referenced, we've been living sort of in the third chakra, moving into the heart center. What can we do in our own practices and our own lives to help move that collective forward?
Well, there's so many things we can do, but let's start with the individual.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that meditation actually quiets the amygdala, which is our fight or flight, me or you, you're a threat to me, so I'm going to kill you kind of thinking, and opens more compassion, more peace, more detachment from being able to be reactive, and taking more time. It changes the brain. It brings the stress chemicals down and the bliss chemicals up. So meditation is the simplest thing. It doesn't cost anything. You can do it almost anywhere. No equipment. No, very little training. And yoga and things like that are making people want to eat better, and then that affects how we grow our food, and we're healthier, and we don't do as much of the invasive surgeries and things like that. So that's on the individual level of what we can do inside to elevate our consciousness, and also just be more forgiving, more compassionate, more considering of the interior experience of another being, even if they're across the world in another culture. On a more global level, I think it's time that even ordinary people step up and start taking leadership. And we think leadership is something that comes with a title or some particular kind of training, or it's being elected to office, but anyone can take leadership in their own town. They can go to a town hall meeting and say, what are we doing in this town about climate change? Are we protected against floods? Are we protected against fires? Do we have people they can do a community garden in their own town. They can, I was just part of a Shift Network music festival where they were raising money to plant 1,000,000 trees, because trees will fix carbon. So people can find just a next step to take that is emanating from right where they are right now, whatever sphere of influence they have, even if it's just bringing up the topic when they're out having coffee with their friends. We should all, the evolution of humanity is at stake here, and we should all be talking about this just about every minute, it seems to me. It's the most important time humanity has ever lived, where we're, just perched between epic creation and potential annihilation. And, it's so important that we choose the epic creation. I can't think of really a more important conversation. So the least you can do is talk about it everywhere. And as you talk about it, you spur ideas, and people say, well, I want to co-create with you. Find people to do things with. You don't have to do it alone. That's the old paradigm.
And I think that we've sort of been sold a bill of goods in a way that everything we do has to be really big in order for it to matter, right? And I always think about that old story of Wayne Dyer walking along the beach and all the starfish had washed up, and he was throwing them back one at a time, and somebody comes along and says, well, you can't save them all. And he said, well, save that one. Kind of that idea of like the small things that we can do within our own families, within our own communities, within our own neighborhoods, within our own states, but also within our own bodies. Like just those slightest shifts can have a vast effect. And when you add them all up, it makes a big difference. So I like to kind of get out of this thinking that we have to be magnanimous in everything that we do. We also live in a culture right now that, influencers or how many likes you have or followers or sort of defines how effective you are in the world. And that's not the reality of awakened leadership, right? We think
that's right.
Right? So can you talk a little bit about that and awakened leadership and how we can, just as, our individual selves over there in our small little corner of the world, be effective as an awakened leader? Because I think we're all leaders in some way.
I think we are all leaders in some way. We all need to take that responsibility to step up, stand up, speak up, show up, grow up, to at this time. That's what is being asked of us, to mature from adolescence to adulthood. Adolescents say, well, mom or dad are going to fix it. And adults go, oh my goodness, it's up to me. So obviously, to be an awakened leader, we have to seek our own awakening. We have to have practices that evolve our consciousness. We have to keep informed, keep studying. Right now in the world, information is at your fingertips about anything you could possibly want to know, whether it's scientific or whether it's the world's greatest spiritual teachers and teachings from through time that you can find online and download or buy books. There's courses galore online now. There's just everything available for our education, because education is escaping the schools and going online and being available to everywhere. So the collective actually could get smarter. And then with that, as you're taking in, you become an open system. You can't help when you take in, but also put out. The more you learn, the more you have to teach, the more you have to offer. So keep on learning. And then, the leadership is really changing. The old model of someone that has to have all the answers and is out front telling everybody else what to do, that's really becoming an outdated model. Now people are talking about servant leadership, awakened leadership, noetic leadership, spiritual leadership. I'm teaching a course called Transformational Leadership. And it's really transformation versus transaction. Transaction is, you give me some money and I give you an apple, but I don't really transform you. But transformative relationships is where we're transforming each other. We're co-elevating. We are empowering our team rather than saying, I'm the leader of the team. We're asking questions rather than giving answers. And then the questions empower people to think for themselves. And, so what do we do about climate change? How can our company become more ecological? How can we recycle better? How can we donate 1% of our profits to a tree planting organization? I mean, there's all kinds of things we can do, big and small.
Is there a way that, you mentioned information is at our fingertips and we are inundated by it. And I think sometimes it's difficult for people to discern some information from other information. Is there a way that we can sort of tune in and can the chakras help us discern what information is good for us or not, or accurate or inaccurate? I mean, it's really, I think it's a little overwhelming for people, honestly.
Well, it's another epidemic that is on this planet right now, the epidemic of misinformation. And, in all my thinking about evolution, I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, right, me either.
We all saw the internet this is going to help everybody learn and make people smarter.
Yes, and connect.
And, we're seeing the shadow side, that people can go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and really get passionate and convinced about it. And so and I think that, I think of there's sacred spiritual values with each chakra, consciousness, beauty, truth in the fifth chakra, love, power, pleasure, and nature. Those are my one key words of, a society that wants to be aligned on each of those levels. But here we're dealing with truth. And this is also the fifth chakra, which means purification. So truth tends to purify a situation. The lies tend to muddy it up. And we have a lot of pollution in our world. And that pollution is like, it stands between us and our pure experience of nature. And the same way with lies, they stand between us and truth. As you continue to purify here, I believe that we have a better sense of what is truth and what is not. But we need to employ our critical thinking. We need to think it through. Is this a logical thing? And the stories that we tell ourselves, in many ways, it's all made up anyway.
Right.
We're not made of atoms, we're made of stories. And the stories we tell ourselves, we have to look at what is the outcome of telling yourself this story. Does this story make you more hopeful? Does it make you more benevolent? Does it make you more compassionate? Does it make you more generous? Does it make you more enlightened, more visionary? Or does it shut you down? Does it say, oh, they're out to get us and there's a secret cabal and we're the victims of it? Because many of the conspiracy theories are victim stories. And there's a lot of believing we are victims. And that is the side effect of the power over paradigm. When people are power on top, there's victims underneath. And those are people that have not found their own power. In a way, you have to find your own power to go truly to the heart.
That is such a great way, as sort of a litmus test as to whether or not the information you're getting is going to support or live more in the darkness, if you will. So you talk about chakras being a map for the journey, and that understanding how charge flows through each of us can help us navigate all of life's twists and turns. And I just want to repeat something that you said earlier. Humanity is on a journey, but that we are journeying, from the love of power to the power of love. And as cliche as that might sound, love really is the answer.
And everyone's saying that these days. It's coming up over and over again.
Right?
It's even creeping into politics.
Yes. Yes.
And that is going to be a higher organizing principle.
Yes.
And whenever humanity through history has shifted to a higher organizing principle, it's created a great deal of abundance because that higher principle is actually more efficient. You know, when they had mass scale farming, then we could have division of labor. Not everybody had to grow their own gardens. Some people could grow gardens and some people could build buildings. And, you know, when we had the Industrial Revolution, I mean, there's a shadow side to that, but it enabled people to, you know, have more, better standard of living in their own homes. When we had the personal computer, that enables something. So every new discovery, every new organizing principle has taken us to a new level. And the thing we have to remember is every new organizing principle and discovery has a shadow. You know, cars are wonderful things to get around, and now they're, you know, adding to climate change. So we have to hold all these things in balance.
The unavoidable duality of all things, because without the up, there is no down, etc. We know that. Is there anything that you would like us to leave us with that we can reflect upon as we look to activate change in our own lives or communities or even the world at large? From where, you know, you're sitting about the evolution of humanity. I did not put that very well, but I think you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are this most amazing moment of evolution that we've never been to before, which is evolution from individual to collective. But we don't lose our individuality in that any more than a violin player loses their own note in an orchestra. You know, the violins and the flutes play different songs in the orchestra, but they play together. And so our individuality is really important, but we're holding it at a higher level. And I think the most important thing I'd like to leave people with as they, you know, look at the changes coming down on the planet is that this is an initiation. And just like adolescents of indigenous cultures sometimes go through an initiation that is very difficult, that initiation is designed to awaken powers that were latent, powers that were not being developed or realized. And that's what it is to become an adult. And so in any, whether that initiation is facing you individually, maybe with an illness or a tragedy in your life, or whether it's facing your village or your town, or, you know, you're facing fires or floods, what is this trying to evolve? That's the question to ask. What is being asked of me in response to this? What powers, what development, what skills, what awakenings? And to not say it, oh my God, we're going down the tubes, but to use it as an evolutionary driver.
Yes.
And so that's a way of holding this humanity's dark night of the soul that we're heading into, because frankly, every system we have has got to change at this point. And many of them have to come down. But if you're not working with evolution, evolution will leave you behind.
Oh, very well put. Couldn't have said it better myself. What a joy to talk to you and to learn about your views on this, you know, evolution of humanity and awakened leadership and activating change in the world. And of course, the chakra system, which you have spent decades, you know, understanding and teaching. If anyone would like more information about the work that you're doing in the world, where should they go?
My website, AnodeaJudith.com, ANODEA, Judith, JUDITH.com. And yes, Judith is my last name. And I'm also teaching a transformational leadership program that starts October 5th. If you're listening to this after that date, we take a few people in after start time. And I have lots of online courses, many of them self-paced. You can download it and do it at your own pace, video courses, and my books, and it's all there.
That's terrific. What great work you're bringing to the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed having you, and I personally have so enjoyed meeting you. Thank you for helping me to open up my own chakras and pay attention to what's going on in my energy body. We appreciate it. Thank you, Anodea.
Oh, wonderful. Julie, thank you for asking the questions of the things I really love to talk about.
Me too. Thank you.